done before. The marketplace is crowded. We can't compete with the big companies. There are many reasons why an idea can die, why inspiration can be left unfulfilled. The gap between concept and rolling up your sleeves to begin is a yawning chasm for most. But for some, that gap is crossed, that fear conquered. The day job is left behind and an adventure begins. It's an audacity to beat the big guns at their own game, a belief in your idea and your ability to execute it. It's starting in the garage with a confidence in your success and a vision for the future. This is the American way.
Went to the local bike shop and I asked if I could apply for a job there. And the guy said, "Are you mechanically inclined?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "We'll see." And he went in the back, he took a Sturmey Archer 3-speed wheel off. He took a couple of spanners and opened up the cones and dumped it all in a box. And so I had to spend the night trying to figure out how to put this 3-speed together, but I did, and I ended up getting a job in a bike store. I've been collecting bicycle components for many years now. Everything from early water bottles and cages to handlebars and stems. And here I have a collection of bicycle pedals that go all the way back to 1877. And here's a great example of early great design. These are the very first pedals to ever have ball bearings in them. I mean, I love designing, I love building. I was fascinated by the mechanics of it. I love the simplicity and the beauty of it. Riding a bicycle, I think, is one of the most enjoyable things you can do. I moved to California because the racing scene was here, and I got into racing here. Kind of a pivotal thing happened to me. This local engineer named Steve Ball has a workshop behind his house, and he's a machinist and an engineer and an inventor. I was able to, probably for the first time ever, see somebody that could make things from scratch. He taught me to look at things with a fresh look and see if there's a better way to do it, just do it. Clipless pedals had become pretty popular by this time, and I thought, let me take a shot at making a better clipless pedal. And I thought, what would make a clipless pedal better? If I can make the first double-sided clipless pedal, that'll be a big invention. This is the grandfather of every Speedplay pedal. We made it and tested it. It allowed us to see if the idea actually worked. No matter where you land on the pedal, it naturally will find top or bottom, so you don't need to know where the top or bottom of the pedal is. It naturally finds it on its own. The very first road riders that we showed it to had really no interest in it. It was so shocking to see this pedal that didn't look like a pedal, and it just started kind of one rider at a time, and by word of mouth, one would tell the other, "Hey, this thing really is cool." And we ended up with Julian Dean and Gord Fraser, and they won hundreds of races between them in the U.S. They became the dominant U.S. racing team. That started getting the wave going, and then Jonathan Vaughters started racing in Europe, and then Tyler Hamilton started racing in Europe, and then Bjarne Riis started riding Speedplay, and then 3 months later he wanted to have his team start riding Speedplay. That brought us into the European racing peloton.
My amateur days, I mean, the first and only pedals I've ever used are Speedplay. Amateur days straight through the national team, racing domestic pro and now Euro pro. Every team I've been on has been Speedplay. Honestly, I love the pedals, I love the cleats, I love how they work, I'm just a lifelong Speedplay guy.
I was curious that, hey, what is that? Well, is that a serious pedal or just a toy? And I gotta say, I was skeptical at the start, but I'm just convinced by just the pure results. I mean, the The power transition is a lot better, it's a lot more direct because you're sitting right on the axle with your foot. You can pedal through almost every single corner because I'm riding with 177.5 cranks, so the longer, and I can pedal through almost every corner with that. And I do not know one single rider on this planet who has a knee problem or a problem with his Achilles tendons for using this system. I would almost go that far to say I choose my teams for the pedals they use, honestly, no kidding.
People had to ride it. It didn't look like a pedal, but once you were on the bike, it felt like a pedal, and it did the things that pedals do really well, but it just looked so different that it was hard for people to wrap their head around this thing actually being a pedal.
Well, it's San Diego, California, so I live here and I've come by Speedplay to pick up some pedals and some cleats, the new lightweight ones, so they're making stuff a little bit better and a little bit faster every day. Yeah, you got to remember the cleats are rotational all the time too, so it's a big difference saving weight there versus someplace on the frame of the bike or something. Well, looking at the pedal is not the strange thing. It's when you first get into it that you just have so much float that you're just so free, and at first you're like, wow, this is really weird, and then 2 hours into it you're like, this is fantastic. And then what you really notice, and you don't notice it when you first start using the pedal, you notice when you go back to a different pedal and then you come back to Speedplay, you notice how fixed and solid they are, how they don't rattle, they don't have any play up and down like this, and they don't have any play forward and backwards. All their play is just where you want it, just rotational.
We have to build to a higher tolerance in order to have that nice connection than any other brand. We've done production here in the US, and it allows us to really focus on making sure that all of the parts fit perfectly. And when people put the pedals together, they know who they're going to. I mean, the liquid gas pedals are made for the liquid gas riders. The guys in assembly know who they're building the pedals for. It's a special thing for our whole crew here when we build things for the top guys in the world. What's next for Speedplay is the mountain bike pedal. This is actually designed with a built-in pivot in the cleat so that the float is actually designed in. The lugs of the shoe don't even touch the pedal body at all. It has the stability of a road pedal, but it's got the adjustability of a zero road pedal. As the designer of the product, I'm really into performance. You know, the way I see it, and it's sort of the culture here, is sure we could make Buicks, but we'd rather make Porsches. I get lost now in the race wins that we have. It's fantastic. As a huge fan of racing and lifelong cyclist, it's just super fun to see people winning the Tour de France and the Giro and the Vuelta on Speedplay.